I'm Anthony Geathers.
And I'm Gregg Weiss.
And we are the hosts of CASE-4-BASS.
Hey guys, Rob Micucci here, professional bass player and co-owner of the 70s disco tribute band Dancin Machine, and you're watching CASE-4-BASS.
Hey everybody, welcome to yet another episode of CASE-4-BASS. I'm your host, Anthony Geathers, and today I'm here with my co-host,
Gregg Weiss. And once again, we have another fantastic episode coming of CASE-4-BASS. And tonight we have Rob Micucci. Is that correct?
Micucci. There you go.
I read it off the screen and sometimes
not Stanley, not like Stanley Tucci, but Micucci.
No,
there you
Micucci.
go.
There you go.
I hate to say it. There's so many ways of turning that around, Micucci.
There is.
I'm sure you must
guilty.
have
Heard them all.
I'm going to say guilty.
I think I've heard them all.
You better hear that.
Rob is a bass player in a very popular dance band here called Dancin Machine.
Dancin Machine, no G.
And they play all over the tri-state area, Long Island, and Rob really digs in, and he's became a member of our Facebook page, which is the CASE-4-BASS podcast. And I'm going to turn it over to Anthony with our first question.
All right, Rob. So I've been following you for a little while now because I've been dancing to the groove of your 70s funk disco stuff. So my first question to you is, did you choose the bass or did the bass choose you? And how did you find the instrument?
Great question. I think I would say that the bass kind of, I don't know, I would think that the bass chose me. I could remember how I discovered that I wanted to be a bass player. When I was a teenager, hanging out with my friends, listening to Led Zeppelin on the boombox.
But wait, hold on. We're not worthy.
Oh, Jumbo Jones. Whenever you hit a legendary keyword, we always bow.
I'm with you. So John Paul Jones is the man.
Mm-hmm.
So me and my buddy were hanging out, listening to some Zeppelin track, and I hear during the guitar solo, there was like this bass line playing underneath, and I didn't really know what it was. I was like maybe 14 years old, and I asked my buddy, and I was like, well, what's the instrument that's going dome, 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 dome? And the guitar's riffing over it, and most guys would be attracted to the guitar or the drums, but I like that hypnotic, deep rhythm. And I think it was like during the guitar solo of Heartbreaker, and my buddy, that type of thing.
That was my song going into surgery.
Right, that's a bass.
Yeah.
And then I heard some Jethro Tull tune that had some walking bass on it, and I was just completely fascinated by how you could play like that. And then, I was getting into music and listening to music, and I just went to my mom, and luckily I had some supportive parents, and I said, I'd like to give this a shot. And that was the first and really the only instrument I played is the bass. I mean, later on in life, recently I learned how to play a couple of block chords on the piano, but I've been playing bass guitar pretty much since I was 14 years old, and I'm 56 now.
Lessons. Okay. Did you take any lessons?
I did. I took a lot of lessons. I was a very poor player when I was younger. I had a bad ear. I was very sloppy. And I thought I wasn't. And then I saw some, I guess, real people play, and I realized, oh boy, I have to get my stuff together. So through a friend, I was referred to an excellent local teacher and player named Gregg. I don't know if you guys are familiar with him, from New Rochelle. You
Not
familiar with Gregg?
Greg.
No, we're going to say we're from Rockland. So
Okay. So
there were about 5 names I was expecting. I didn't hear one of them.
I hooked up with Gregg. Gregg had, he was an upright player and an electric player. He was very accomplished. He studied jazz, and he could play, classical with the bow, arco style, and he played upright. And he was a local electric player, and he took me under his wing, and he basically said, hey, if you want to be a good player, you got to work hard. And basically, I'm going to start you from scratch. And I was probably like 20 years old at the time. And I was so upset that I sucked. And then I was like, all right, I want to be good. So I had to put in my my 10,000 hours,
No,
so
that's what it takes. It's what it's all about.
That's how I did
I
it.
also
And there was,
noticed.
sure.
I also noticed that you're a lefty. Like
Yes.
yeah, that was really something that I caught. It's so, I hate to say it, man. I've seen you perform many times with Dancing Machine.
Yeah.
But until we started doing the podcast is when I really paid close attention to the fact that you were a lefty there. Because now I'm focusing on getting bass players. So Gregg and I were like, hey man, we need content. So now I'm with my lady. We go, let's go out and hang out. And then I'm like, shit, this guy's playing lefty. Because I'm not even thinking of the bass at the time. I'm just thinking about dancing and having fun. Then I see that you're playing lefty. And then you break out into ain't no stopping us now.
Great line, yeah.
So I'm hearing that. And then she was the one who said, why don't you ask him to be on the podcast? And I was like, you know something? Why not?
Thank you. Thanks to you, lady.
Well, you make the case for bass. That's where it starts.
That's where it's about.
Absolutely.
And then we hear, how you started, and we'll keep moving on. But the lessons thing is, I took lessons. Anthony gave lessons. That's what I know. I'm pretty sure Anthony's self-taught. So
I was for the first couple of years, and then I met Professor Rubin, as we know from Rample High School, as an upright bass player. He gave me literally 5 lessons, and that was it. He was like, "Okay, you're on your own."
Well, I can see why he was that kind of teacher. I would credit him for my interval training and developing my ear. Because I took that music theory class that he taught in high school, and the most important thing on a bass is knowing where your notes are going to go for the chord changes, and there's nothing like ear training. So,
yep,
absolutely. So I have studied with a couple of other guys as well. I don't want to gloss over them because some of them are local, very, very good players. When I was younger, I took some lessons from Kip Sofis, if you guys are familiar with him. Fantastic local player. And then also a jazz guitar player named Peter Prisco. Old school, straight ahead guy. And, the combination of studying with Gregg and Kip Sofis and the guitar player, Peter Prisco, who I believe has since passed away, COVID related, but he was a wonderful, straight ahead jazz bebop guitar player. And all I would do was go to his house, and we would just open up the real book, and we would just sit and play for like an hour, and we would just trade solos. And not that I'm, even intermediate level at that style, but that gave me so much ear training that with Dancing Machine, some of those songs are more
horn related,
harmonically deeper than just 2 or 3 note rock chords, which was
they are.
And I always had my head buried in charts, but since I studied some jazz harmony,
you're feeling it.
Years to just being able to memorize tunes really, really easy, and not to have to read anything on a gig anymore, unless I'm doing a sub gig or something like that, which is a different story.
Okay, so let's talk
I wanted
about.
To mention those guys.
Okay, cool. The fact that you're a lefty player, what are the challenges with being a lefty player? Because I always think of Paul McCartney. I hate to say it, I've always envied lefty players. I'll tell you why. You look so cool on stage. You just
Wow.
look good. It looks so good. Like when you see, like I always would think of John Lennon and Paul McCartney on stage, just the way they'd face each other.
Right.
And I always thought that was great. That look was always cool, as opposed to the
That mirror look,
uniform.
the symmetry.
I
Wow.
love that. I love it.
I
wish.
wish somebody told me that 35 years ago, because I really had a thing. I had a little chip on my shoulder about, well, I'm lefty and it's harder to get instruments and it's going to look weird. And I just never really saw it as a,
It looks
advantage.
so cool. And just
Thank you.
Hendrix alone, by flipping it upside down,
Right.
made it look cooler, even though he wasn't a lefty. But the fact that
Right.
he turned it upside down. So I would always.
Well, he didn't
back
play
to the- I-
backwards. That's
Yes.
the latest thing. Isn't just lefty. It's lefty backwards.
Yep.
So, great question. I mean, it's so challenging to get a decent instrument without spending a ton of money 30 years ago when I was first starting out. Now there's some companies that are more lefty friendly. And if we get into some of my basses later, I could show you.
We will.
We will.
So,
Yeah.
it was a challenge. I mean, my second bass, somehow I convinced my parents to buy me this really nice candy apple red Fender Precision bass. It was like in the early 80s, which I've since
Hold
had.
on a second. We're not worried. Don't
Yeah.
worry. Fender
Yes.
Precision bass, man.
Which
We love
now, and now,
DNA guys.
now here comes
Yeah,
the
we're
cursing
Fender.
me out, which unfortunately an old band member convinced me to paint it. And we brought it to an auto body place that put some kind of seal coating on it, and it totally wrecked the bass.
Change
And
the
then
sound.
It sounded like horrible after that. It was
It
such
will.
a great sounding
Yeah,
bass. And
It's
then
that
I was so
acrylic.
frustrated
It's a
with
thick
it.
acrylic.
It like sucked up all the tone. It was horrible. And it was hard.
Mm-hmm.
Like it was very hard to finish.
I mean,
So
whose
I
idea
sold
was
that
it?
bass.
Yeah, whose idea was it to paint?
It wasn't
to go
mine.
to a body shop and just say, something, guys, I want you to spray. Make my
I
car
was
look
the
like a
stupid one
Corvette.
that listened.
Oh, they've seen that before. It's not the first time a musician went into an auto body shop.
So, I mean,
Okay.
my buddy recommended it. He was in a band. There was like a metal hair band, a local
Yeah.
band, and he was like,
you don't need all the bass tone going
candy
on.
apple red, why don't you get it painted like Corvette yellow? And I was like, okay. What a mistake.
Wow.
Man.
So that destroyed the instrument, obviously.
It really did screw it up. And then back in those days, and Ibanez was a little lefty friendly, so I had an Ibanez, and I had always modified my basses with aftermarket parts. So I was a big EMGs pickup guys. I had
Nice.
the Fender had EMG. I put a bridge pickup in it. I know Sacred.
Not
and
necessarily.
Badass bridge, that kind of thing.
They integrated that into their new active setups. They
Yep.
learn. They absorb it.
What's that?
Newer technology from aftermarket stuff, because they have the budgets to redesign anything at any time.
Right.
So it might not have been in a standard P or J base, but they had the Arrow and a whole bunch of other models that were more metal centric.
Right. Absolutely.
Nice.
But,
Okay, so what was your first bass that you fell in love with? I mean, obviously you had the Fender,
What was
Fender P bass, which
What was that?
your friend recommended that you paint.
I'm sticking with that
Corvette
story.
yellow.
It wasn't me. Yeah, so I had some cheapo bass that was right-handed that my mother had a friend whose daughter was a music teacher, and I wasn't even involved in the purchase. And I had this old horrible amp that was like a keyboard amp, and it was right-handed, the bass, and I tried to play right-handed at first when I started, and then I switched the strings around, and I think that's when I convinced my parents that, hey, this is not working, I got to get a left-handed instrument, and they were generous enough to drop several $100s on a Fender Precision bass for somebody that couldn't really hardly play at all.
Well, but this is something that happened in other interviews, is you knew what you wanted, but maybe didn't know why.
Or how to achieve it, but yes.
Oh,
I
it was your gut. It was something that comes out.
Absolutely. Very guttural.
You knew the amp was weak. You knew you had to flip the strings. You knew, you knew there was a direction and you had to find the path.
Absolutely.
Good for you.
Absolutely.
It's stopped some people.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
and I was more tenacious, I guess, about it, and then more
Okay, good
We
for
like
you.
it.
so into it.
Now,
I
did
was
you
just so in love with it.
nice? Now, did you follow the path that a lot of musicians follow, meaning that you played in the high school band or orchestra or anything of that nature?
No, I never took that path.
Okay.
I was, like I said,
Parties,
when I was,
garages. You
yes,
were.
yeah, more jamming with friends.
That's
But
awesome.
Okay.
I went to Catholic high school, so there was the only music class I took in high school was music appreciation, taught by Mr. Tallarico, Victor Tallarico, who happens to be the father of Steven Tyler from Aerosmith, was my music appreciation teacher in high school.
Oh wow!
Whoa,
And he was
that's awesome,
wonderful, wonderful man, and
What a
very
great story.
open-minded. And he would let us bring in records and listen to what was popular at the time, including his son's band and Led Zeppelin and Iron Maiden was a big influence for me when I was younger. And
He said Iron Maiden. Steve Harris.
Steve Harris. We're not worthy.
We're not worthy.
We're not worthy.
Totally
And,
Steve Harris. We're into it.
And he was a wonderful blues and classical piano player. So he would play. So I did have an appreciation for that without really realizing it. And then also I was, even when I was a little kid, because my family is not musical at all, I was always a fan of Elvis. And
Okay.
later on, I
Very
think maybe
chef.
like I was in the 7th or 8th grade, and the Blues Brothers would be on Saturday Night Live. And I would be standing in front of the
Nice.
TV with my little cassette recorder with one
Done.
speaker, telling my mother, I want to tape this. I love this. This is good stuff. But I didn't realize that I was a fan of the blues. And then when I started taking lessons, then I worked my way through the blues.
The blues
Okay,
and the bass go hand in hand.
They go hand in hand. A question.
Really?
So what you said that your family wasn't very musical, but what were your parents playing in the house at the time? Were they playing was there any music that you were influenced by coming from them?
There was some ethnic music because my parents are both Italian immigrants.
Okay.
So there wasn't a lot of, modern music. I mean, you would think there would be like more things like Frank Sinatra and stuff like that, but there was more
Sure.
like, some Italian music, things of that nature, things in that.
Did you have remixes of?
Pretty much. Yeah, pretty much, and some stuff like that. I'm pretty sure there was some good crooners, maybe some
Okay.
Jerry Vale. But then from there, I just got the bug. If you guys remember that ABC, I'm Just a Bill.
Oh
yeah.
I'm just a bill on top of a Capitol
Schoolhouse
Hill.
Rock.
Schoolhouse Rock.
When I was 6 years old, I begged my family to get me that for Christmas.
That was Randy Newman in the top.
Yeah,
studio
some
players
great
right.
in
players
LA,
and
and,
great tunes on that. And
you'd be really surprised.
that
Who
sort of
the
lit
heavies
the
are.
fire subconsciously for me that I got that record when I was like 6 years old.
Yeah.
Wow.
Verb.
And then,
That's what's happening. Verb.
Right. And then
Yep.
later on, I started studying, and then I was learning how to play blues and Motown. So naturally, I started taking gigs in that style. Gregg, I was in the Hudson Crawlers for a short time.
Mm-hmm.
I was also in another band for a while called Mojo Freddie and the Blues Blasters, which played around a lot. And I loved playing blues. I got to solo.
There was
I
a
got to play
scene.
walking bass lines.
There were 10 places to play in the area.
Yeah, and you get to improvise. There was gigs all the time. I was subbing
People were
gigs
coming
out
to see
crazy.
you,
I was always gigging. It was a fun time. It really was. That was in my 20s. I really had a
Mhm.
lot of fun doing that.
Good for
And I
you.
met a lot of good people too,
Oh, yeah.
Okay, let's fast forward to where you are with Dancing Machine. So here you're involved with doing this funk disco thing. Like, when did you and your partner Charlie decide we're going to put together this dance band, bring in a bunch of different musicians, go above and beyond just a classic rock band? Because most guys, in terms of, we're so used to seeing bass, guitar, drums, usually
3-4
a lot
pieces.
of trios, 3 or 4
Sometimes a
pieces at
keyboard
most.
player. Sometimes a sax
sometimes
player.
a keyboard player.
Sometimes a second singer.
If I counted, when I counted at your last show, you had approximately 11 players in the band. If not
11
10.
pieces. Yep.
11
It's
pieces
11.
in the band. So,
Mhm.
so here you had 3 horns, keyboardist, percussionist, drummer, of course, the singers. I'm not going to go through the rest, but obviously,
It's hard,
you know where I'm going with this. How
Yeah.
did you decide? You and Charlie say, let's form a disco band, because obviously it works out well in that way. It worked out well in your favor.
God bless my partner, Charlie Spataro. We've been playing as a bass and drum in bands, cover bands, wedding bands, for like since back in the days of the Hudson Crawlers, which has got to be at least 25 or 30 years. And he knew I was easy to get along with, and I had good gear, and I would show up on time and learn the material. So we ended up playing together a lot, and we became good friends. And one day we had just been playing local bar bands, making $500 for 4 or 5 people playing classic rock. And we've been doing it for 20 years. And we both got sick of making $100 on a gig. And he said to me, he called me up and he said, Rob, I just went to a wedding this weekend, and I noticed that the only time the dance floor was packed was when they played 70s disco. So he goes, why don't we put a band together and make it professional and make it as big as it needs to be, and do this and treat it like a business, but we'll play great music. We'll play it just like the record, and we'll hopefully get some great musicians to work with us. And, we won't worry about where we're going to play or how long it's going to take us to get off the ground. And it was all him. I got to give him credit for it. I just went along for the ride. And, it's been like 13 years now.
Wow.
And,
can I tell you something?
Sure.
No, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. But
no,
I also
no.
noticed, and that's funny because I every once in a while I do speeches at Technical Career Institute, which is in New York City. And the one common thread and it's not just bands, it's everyone in general, the idea that staying persistent, consistent, just keep going until something kicks off. And my mentor would always say to me, even my clothing stuff, because look, Anthony, if I can get you to make $5, trust me, within a short period of time, you'll make $500. Then you'll make $500. Then you'll make $5,000. You keep on just keeping on. I mean, you guys built a nice little foundation there. And also, what makes sense. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. It's a good attitude to have, and I got to credit my partner for it. He's got the best work ethic. Nobody works harder than him. He never takes a shortcut. He does so much to keep the band up and running. And, we have a national agent, actually international, I believe. We've had gigs scheduled internationally that we had to unfortunately turn down due to COVID. But, like next month coming up, I have a gig in Maryland. I have a gig in Delaware. I have a gig in Pennsylvania.
Wow.
And I have the local gig. And, we were able to build it to a good band and a good business partnership and a great friendship. And it's, I'm very proud to, be part of it. I really am.
As you should be, and I'll tell you why. I did a podcast during COVID, and we were talking about we had about 75 people on the podcast, and we did it through Zoom. And I remember someone saying to me or asking, "What would you recommend a musician does or a musician should do once COVID seems to break?" And I said, you got to come out different than everybody else. I said, I can go to most places and find a classic rock band on a Saturday night. There's probably about 5 of them on one block. I go, if you can walk in and make it so that you're isolated from what everyone else is doing, you're going to definitely be booked for a long period of time. And the fact that Dancing Machine does the disco thing, the disco funk thing, how many bands are doing that right now? There's not many.
I mean,
there are people that try, but they're not doing it well.
I mean, besides some, there are some good, there's some good bands around, and there's some good club bands that do part of that stuff, but maybe they also do 80s and 90s dance music or some modern dance music. I think our take is a little different that, we have 4 vocalists in the band. Actually, we have more than that, but we have 4 main lead vocalists, if you count Charlie and the other male vocalist and the 2 females. Yep. And, we're wearing costumes. We're playing stuff like as close to the record as possible. We have the real horn section, so it's not somebody playing it on a keyboard. and we have the light show, and our singers are fantastic. So it's just a good band and a good concept, and it worked, and it works because we didn't pull any we didn't hold back. We said whatever it takes to do it and make it professional and sound like the record. We're not worrying about, hey, we're going to play at the local bar, because we can't play at the local bar. I can't do a gig down the street with an 11-piece band. I mean, just to pay the musicians in the band, I can't afford to do it, because bars don't usually pay a lot of money. I mean,
bars don't pay anything compared to what they used to.
I mean, I have a nice long-term gig with the wonderful people that own the Westgate, and that was a big room, and it was good timing and hard work, and a lot of sweat equity, a lot of doing gigs where me and Charlie, didn't get paid because we had to pay the band members,
Sure.
But I got to say, it's come back now to, where I'm doing well, and I'm financially with it and enjoying more than ever playing that style of music.
Yeah. Let's talk about basses. That's awesome, dude. Let's talk about basses. Yep. The night that
we're going to ask you, out of the top 3 basses, if they're available there, let's go from number 3 to number 1, because it sounds like you have more than 3.
I have more than 3. I don't know if
now, the night that I saw you play, you had a beautiful red Music Man.
The blue Music Man.
That was blue one. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm the red man guy. Looking back.
Yep. But that was gorgeous. And then you had, if I'm correct, there was is it a J bass or a P bass?
It's actually a Schecter J bass.
Oh, okay.
Ooh.
Awesome.
That's the second we heard of a Schecter on stage with players.
So I think Doug Pennick is a Schecter right now. And he's a lefty guy too. Yeah.
Doug Pennick.
An amazing.
Shout out to Doug. We love you, man.
Love Doug, man.
Shout out to Doug. Doug was awesome. And Doug was actually,
Doug was a guest on the show already.
Right. That's why I brought him up, because Anthony had mentioned that to me. So, I love Doug and his whole 12-string thing and his vocals. I mean, he's a great player. Yep. So I mentioned the Schecter because, they're a lefty-friendly company, and they make good instruments, man. I bought that bass that you saw, Anthony. It's a Seafoam Green. I got it here. I wanted a passive jazz-style bass with a maple neck to do like fly gigs and travel gigs where I didn't want to bring one of my expensive Fenders out. And that's why I bought it. And the bass is a monster, man. I mean, if I slap on this bass, it's the easiest bass I have to slap on, and it comes through like every mix, unbelievable. That night you saw me, I actually switched to the Music Man because for some reason I just wasn't vibing with the Schecter that night. Mm-hmm. But I mean, I've used it as my main bass, and I actually bought it to be a backup. And I don't consider it to be one of my top 3 either. So I don't even know if you want to waste time talking about it.
No, but it sounded so good.
No, we always do. It's ironic that the bass you bought for the backup as an abuse bass becomes one of your favorites.
Yeah,
that's what happened. Literally, it's what happened to me with my Music Band. It overtook my G&L and my Fender, and it was inexpensive. If I'm going to play gigs outside in November, December,
that's
I'm going to get something I'm not going to feel bad about. Either working on it myself or if it gets abused or it twists in the wind or whatever, and then I didn't put it down for 4 months.
Right. Cool. That's great, man.
So show me what's behind you. You have a couple of beautiful instruments behind you.
Let's
see what's there.
I have 8 of my instruments surrounding me right here. I know a lot. I know so many guys that have so much more stuff than me. I know you guys. I'm a big fan of Bobby Devlin. I know you guys have. He's part of the group, man. He's
Bobby Devlin's in.
He's pending. He's in the pin. Bobby, if you're watching,
he's also a great player and a great singer. And I think he went to my high school, if I'm not mistaken, but he was a couple of years ahead of me. So shout out to Bobby Devlin, because I can't compete with you, Bob. But I have a couple of nice basses here. If I had to pick, can I pick 4?
Yes.
Pick
4.
Yep.
Pick 5.
Okay, I'll pick 4. So I got this American Deluxe Fender jazz bass here.
Ooh, gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous.
I believe it's
You
2000.
have to model it like a Vanna White, where you just show it. Like it's just look at that. That thing is.
Is that active?
So it's active, but I put EMGs in it.
More active.
And it's an 18-volt circuit, strung through body. I've had a number of bridges on it, but I'm back to the actual stock bridge right now. But I've also had KSM and hip shot bridges on it. But I'm back to, because I sweat a lot when I play, so I go through these bridge components. They start to rust out on me, and I got to replace them a lot. But I found this cleaner that helps take the rust off, so I was able to recover the original bridge and put it back on.
Did you ever get intonation issues from the bridges?
No, I set up my own instruments.
I've heard that recently, so just
and
asking.
I got to tell you, once I set up a bass, and I use the same strings all the time on, depending on what instrument it is, I don't get a lot of intonation issues. Once I set it, the only thing I have to do to correct the intonation usually is make a neck adjustment every season.
Okay.
What strings are you using on that bass?
This bass has Elixir nickels because I sweat a lot. And I could kill a set of strings with Dancin machine on a gig in half a night. I've killed Ernie Ball strings in half a night with Dancin machine.
So you prefer the
the coated elixirs, especially these coating. These strings sound good. And these are gig strings. They're still bright. And they feel good, and they're a little more money, but they twice as much money, but they last 10 times as long for me.
So you do a cardio session when you play, like you literally doing cardio.
You do a cardio session.
Yeah, it's definitely with the the sequins and all that nonsense. It's a little bit of a work, especially since I'm not a young guy anymore. I would like to say that I do have I have the first serial number 1 EMG. Whatever it is, BTC bass preamp designed for a left-handed bass player on this. They custom made this just for me.
Wow.
Which I don't know if they just have to wire it differently or the pots are different. I'm really not sure. But
probably all backwards.
That's pretty badass, dude.
Yeah, but it was really cool, and they just did it as a favor for me on the arm. Like the old circuit,
it's just not upside down.
They replaced it, and I said, "Hey, can you make a lefty one?" And I got the box, and it's got the serial number 1 on it, and I was like, "Oh, this is pretty cool, man."
That's really cool.
Nice.
So this is, this is definitely one of the main guys. This is one of the main Dancin machine instruments. I do tend to favor Fender style instruments.
Nice.
Okay. We believe.
We'll go to the next one. I don't know if you could see this.
Oh yeah!
Oh my God,
it's like a bird's eye. Or what is that?
Yeah, that's beautiful.
This is, believe it or not, I don't know if you could see it. This is a Federa New York City Empire jazz bass.
Wow!
So
gorgeous,
I did work.
Gorgeous instrument.
This isn't. I believe this is from 1994. I've owned this, so it's going to be coming up on 30 years.
Wow!
This is the longest I've owned. This is the longest bass that I've owned for the longest.
That is absolutely beautiful.
Wow.
And I'll tell you what,
it
still plays and sounds great. So I had been working in Sam Ash. Some good bass players were playing, working there with me, and we were always talking bass stuff.
Which one?
I had a buddy of mine.
What location?
White Plains.
Okay.
And my buddy, also local bass player, great player, nice guy, JC Alza. I don't know if you're familiar with him. You should check him out. He's an excellent player. Plays a lot locally in Westchester.
Okay.
He's a big, he turned me on. He's like, "Oh, you got to check out this Federa." So I would go on to the website, and I saw they had a lefty on there, and I go, "Oh, yeah, that's great." But it's like a $3,000 instrument,
$1 million,
struggling
base
to get by. Does it work
in base value?
But if you could see,
what kind of strings are on there anyway?
What's that?
What strings?
What kind
These
of
are
strings?
Black Beauties.
Yeah.
DR
strings, Blake. Yep, DR strings. Black
They're a coated string too. They're not as they don't have the same coating as the elixirs, but they still sound pretty good. I still gig this bass. So it could go active, passive. It's all boost circuit. It's like an old circuit. I've actually had, this is probably like the 5th bridge I've had on here, but it still sounds and plays great. And it had a little ding on it from when they shipped it out to a NAMM show. So Joe Lauricella down at Federa, I called him up and I said, I'm interested in that bass I saw on your website. He goes, oh yeah, you know what? We're selling it for half price. I said, okay.
Whoa.
I'm down with my credit card. I put a down payment on it and I let it sit.
Wow.
And I never picked it up. I didn't pick it up for like months. Months went by and I'm like, I'm never going to have the money to pay for this.
Whoa.
So I just, one day I just said, you know what? I'm just going to pay it off. And I went down there with my credit card and Joe from Federa, Joe Lauricella and Vinny Federa, they sat with me. They set the bass up in front of me. I mean, I've had it plecked there.
Wow.
You know, I've had guys tell me it's not a Federa because it doesn't have the Federa logo. But this was when they were making these jazz style basses for a while in the 90s. And this was before they even put the Federa logo on it. This is 100 from the Federa company, made by them. And I picked it up right in the Federa factory in Brooklyn.
Wow. What a find.
Been there several times.
But a round of applause for the Federa.
They make some great stuff, man. They really make some nice stuff.
Yep.
All right.
And number 3 is up next.
Number 3 is we have the Lefty Stingray.
Wow.
Stingray.
This has what's called the slow special.
Yes.
SLO special, which is a narrower neck. It's more like a jazz bass. Which was a feature in 2015 when I ordered this bass. And I had it made, you know, basically sight unseen. I picked the color. I picked the pearl mother of toilet seat pick guard, pearloid here, whatever you call that. And I had the bass made and shipped to me. And I loved it. I loved the way it played. It didn't really sound like a classic Stingray to me, though, because it's got the new reband.
Yes, yes.
And I may switch back because I found a company that makes a 2-band version that's copying like the classic
circuit 70s style.
Right. But since then, I've installed, now I have this Aguilar pickup in here. Nice. And it has, you know, bass, mid, treble, like the Music Man. But this toggle switch, you could toggle between the high mid frequencies. I think it's 400 and 800, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And
I'm assuming, is it active EQ as well?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's heavily active.
This is actually designed to run on an 18-volt preamp, but this bass only has a room for a 9. I don't know if I want to cut it up anymore. Shout out to my luthier, by the way, Paul Schwartz, Picamoose Guitars. He builds and he's in Rhinebeck, New York now. He was in New York City.
He's the one that. Okay, yes, he's a guy in Rhinebeck. I'm familiar with him.
You familiar with him? Yeah, I mean, this guy, he does great fretwork, which I'm going to show you on my number 1 bass that he did for me. And he does this custom thing to every Fender style guitar where he installs a shim in the neck pocket. And I have one in my jazz bass, and I have one in the next bass that I'm going to show you.
Makes so much difference.
It makes the bass play lower action on the
shim
low end of the instrument. And it might even improve the intonation. I mean, he could tell you the mojo of it. But basically what he said is when Fender made these, there was a little bit of a design flaw, and they should have beefed up the neck pocket a little bit. So that's one of the mods he does. And he does great work, man. He's actually got
they put that adjustable ball in the back of the neck on the neck plate.
I love this thing.
To create a shim.
Oh, I thought you were talking about the truss rod adjuster.
Oh no, no! I'm talking about G&Ls.
It's absolutely beautiful.
Thank you. Yes. And you know, I mean, a lot of the hits we play in Dancin Machine were, you know,
Music Man style.
On Stingray, a lot of the stuff was done on a Stingray, although he uses flats, I think, or half rounds, which I may actually. I have another Stingray style bass. It's not a real Stingray. It's like a Frankenstein Warmoth that Paul at Picamoose is working on right now. And I may throw some flats on that one just to go back and forth and keep it a little more authentic.
Traditional.
I am a round guy.
I'm a flats guy. I love my flats.
Are you?
Oh my God. Once I hit him one day, I never went back.
I'm trying to learn how to
years.
get better with my pick, playing with a pick also. So I
Nice.
think flats and a pick is kind of a cool sound that I want to experiment with more.
It is
So
actually.
It's very
I
Carol
definitely-
K-ish.
yeah. Oh, I love that. And I definitely need to get one of these guys with flats on it. But like I said, Paul has two of my basses right now. So one of them, when I get them back, is going to end up with flats, if not both of them, probably.
Okay.
Yeah, it's going to make it's just I just find the flats when you play in the band. Holy crap. What is that?
Yeah. What is that?
This is 1978 Fender P bass.
Wow.
Okay. Nice.
I'm not sure how long I've had it, but this, it's definitely got some mojo.
We're Maple Neck guys, so
well,
Yes.
This is only the second instrument that I currently own that has a maple board. The other one is that other Sheck that I was telling you about. But this bass sounds great. It's the only thing I think that's not original about it is before I got it, the pickup was replaced. We were trying to figure out what it was. It's likely a DiMarzio, like an old style DiMarzio before they had the adjustable pole pieces.
Nice.
And when you put round wounds on this thing, and if you play it through like a tube amp, it's just got that grindy
everything. Yeah.
Like that Billy Sheehan kind of just in your face kind of.
Oh, wait.
You said Billy Sheehan.
We have to do you said Billy Sheehan. We're not worried.
Yes.
Billy, we love you.
Billy Sheehan is awesome.
Yeah, and it's just kind of got that tone. And actually, I don't gig with this very much with Dancin Machine.
Okay.
Plus, it has value to me. It's the oldest instrument I have. I had the gentleman Paul from Pikamoose. It had to be refretted when I bought it. I got it at a great price, and it cost me almost as much as the bass to have it refretted. But it needed to be done. He does such wonderful fretwork. The bass plays great, and you're not going to be able to see it. But that shim that I was talking about, he shimmed it for me, and it just
flattens out everything.
It just makes a world of difference. It just makes it easy to play in all registers, and it just sounds great. And it's just a killer bass, man. It's just a really, really great instrument.
Wow. All right, so round of applause for all your lovely instruments.
Thank you, guys.
We like the forest.
Yeah, we like the forest. It's looking really good. Look, it's like we get excited, like women will get excited over diamonds, and some guys get excited over cars.
Strings get me off. You know what I mean?
Strings get us off.
But what are you doing for amps? So how do you play with Dancin Machine? Is that like a direct through the PA, or do you got like a head cabinet setup that ends up going direct? Or
yeah, exactly. I have a couple of different rigs that I use, but mostly, I can get away with a 410 and a head, and some support from the PA system. We always have. We have a sound company, A&J, that we've been using for 12 years. That does sound for most of our shows, unless there's like in a theater where there's sound already is contracted by the theater or something. And we always have a sound guy that's mixing us with a lot of subwoofers and support and monitor,
reinforcement
and all that reinforcement and stuff. So and they're
so that
all their
explains
guys,
why it sounds so good.
and all their guys are good, and they're musicians, and a bunch of them are bass players. So like after 13 years, I'll still be like, hey man, did my bass sound good tonight? You like the sound of this? And they'll tell me exactly, oh, I like this bass better than that one, and your tone was really coming through, or maybe this bass isn't sitting in the mix that much, which that feedback is very helpful because you don't really know what it sounds like from.
I want to add on to that because the night that I saw you perform, and I was listening to your bass tone, I was like, man, these guys, whoever's doing the mixes, these guys understand bass. Yeah, they understand. They just did a great job at it because it was, of course, me. If I can get away with it, I don't want it to be the loudest instrument on the stage.
Me too.
But you were
I am actually.
You were nicely.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but you were definitely a little bit ahead, but you also weren't overbearing. Like you weren't trailing out the vocalist, you weren't trailing out the drummer. Obviously, you weren't killing off the drummer sound. You weren't trailing out the rest of the musicians. It just sounded really, really good. I mean,
Thanks.
I commend that.
I definitely pass that on to my sound guys because they do a great job. And I think, in that room where you were, Anthony, if I'm not mistaken, I saw where you were at, and from looking at the videos, I think you got some of the live, rig too before the front of the house. Because I got a 410. I'm using can you guys see this or no?
Oh, nice cat. Hey, cat.
Hey, nice cat. What's up, dude?
Hey, Jezebel.
There you go.
She loves. She's. I call her.
You hit the triple prize tonight.
The queen of bass. But she loves all my bass stuff. So on that gig, I was using my my Epiphany, the old one. I think it's the UL 502, 2-channel. Before they made all the really small Class D stuff that everybody's using now, which I'm not a huge fan of. But I don't want to carry an SVT around either. So I use that.
No.
2 channels. On small gigs, I'm using like a Boss ME50B, just like a little, midline pedal board, just to give me a little compression and a little chorus. And believe it or not, I actually play with some overdrive a little bit, whether I get
okay.
amp or pedal.
It adds color.
Yeah, I feel like it just makes it nice, and I don't have to like play louder.
Mm-hmm. Well, you don't.
Which is what I would normally do. So if I just add, I love the MXR, the M80 box. It's a bass preamp and DI, and it has an overdrive channel. I have it on like my analog board. And even for a while, I was in the Tom Petty tribute band, and I just left that thing on all the time because the bass
all the time.
So nice.
I found that love with an MXR phaser, actually.
Yeah, I have to replace mine. Actually, mine is on the Fritz, but I love the fade. I love that for the
my phaser. It gives me this earthy overall feel good groove.
Cool.
That when I don't have it, I'm still looking for it because it makes this subjective wave in the crowd.
Yeah,
awesome. All right,
I love the phaser.
Let's talk about. This is gonna be your last question, actually.
Okay.
Probably 2 or 3, but
it blends in. It
always blends in with us. So, what would you say to an aspiring young musician who loves the idea of becoming a professional bass player? Like, what are the words of wisdom you might give to that person?
It's tough, like any other career, and the more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. But not only being a well-rounded musician that sounds good and knows how to play authentically in a lot of popular styles, and knowing what gigs are available in your area, and networking yourself. But I also find that there's a lot of guys that are really good, and someone's got to get the gig. And who's going to get the gig if all the guys are at the same level that are really good or really great players? The guy that's going to get the gig is the guy that shows up on time, the guy that's prepared, the guy that, has a backup instrument if something happens to his instrument. He's there early. He's going over charts. Maybe he's contributing in other ways, singing backup vocals or doing some arranging. So it's those other intangibles besides being an excellent musician that you have to, network yourself and put yourself in a position to be successful. I mean, I know, I always have a joke, a lot of the best musicians are cab drivers because they don't have those other intangibles to get their shit together. They just think, hey, I'm a badass, whatever, fill in the blank guitar player. I'm going to show up on the gig and I'm going to piss off the leader, or maybe not learn songs, or solo longer than I need to solo.
That doesn't work anymore. Not that it ever has.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Not that it ever has.
Even for my gig, man, I'm like, I get 2 solo spots, and I'm not a particularly good soloist or have a ton of chops. And I'm figuring out ways to put bass lines from other tunes that people will recognize in as part of the solo thing. Like, for instance, in the Chic tune.
Well, you did that with the other one, Bites the Dust. And
right, like I stick that in, or I might stick in thank you for letting me be myself or something like that, instead of doing
Mhm.
some crazy, fast, sloppy solo, which is what I would
Can I tell
normally
you
do.
something? Victor Wooten once said, he goes, those ridiculous solos. He's like, actually, he was doing a seminar, and one guy in the audience asked, "Why is it that all of a sudden the audience comes to a screeching halt when I do a bass solo?" And he goes, "Do you do all these fast notes without the drummer?" He says, "Did you lose the groove?" He goes, "Well, yeah." He goes, "I can't blame them." He goes, "You're there to serve a purpose. You're there is to do a job. You're there to keep people dancing. That's your job." He goes, "Why are you setting it
True.
up so that you do the solo? It's all about me, 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 me." And then the dance floor is all like, "No, no, 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 no. We're
Yeah.
not dancing anymore. We don't care
No.
about you. We want to dance." So I
That's
actually, I'm okay with people when they don't do these long drawn out solos. I really am, especially at a dance event. Yeah, that is very
yeah.
true.
I think you hit it on the head. Right there. I mean, people want to dance. They don't want to hear fast bass playing.
Yeah,
Unless listen, if you have your niche, Billy Sheehan or Jeff Berlin or Victor Wooten, whatever awesome player that has a lot of chops that you like. But when you go see those guys, the good guys, the guys that work with everybody, the Marcus Millers, that
Right.
separates himself from the local
Exactly.
player who's not getting
Groove is the number one
is because
task.
yeah,
he'll go and groove and not overplay on the song, man. I mean, I see guys locally that are great players and they're playing, I don't know, George Benson groove, and they're playing all these licks in between the bass line, Phil, or something.
yep.
And I'm like, I would never hire you to be my bass player in my band.
No,
Never.
well, also
Yeah.
bear in mind what
You're,
makes Marcus Miller unique, because Marcus Miller is also a producer.
that's true.
That's
Right.
there's a big difference in that
A
when you're a
common theme here
producer.
is you got to play to the song.
Right.
You gotta
Well, you
play
got to
the
have
song.
that mindset, whether you're a producer or not. I try
Yeah.
and bring the mindset of a producer. How is this going to sit with the vocals? Am I playing too loud? Does my bass sit good in the mix? Am I grooving with the drummer? Am I
Mhm.
playing too busy? Should
Yep.
I be playing less here? I mean, it's dictated for me because I'm taking what's off a record, but I have a
Sure.
little bit of leeway in some parts to do certain things. Maybe not as much as some other gigs.
Well, you're lucky enough to have people in your band that stick to the page, as opposed to being like a free for all, make it up, and hopefully it'll sound like the record you're trying to cover.
Well,
Yep.
that's by design, Greg. I must say.
Oh, I understand. No,
We
Yeah.
rehearsed an
I
awful
come
lot
from a
for many
completely
years.
opposite perspective
Yeah. Well,
that
I've come from that
I'm not
perspective.
going to talk about. But
Right.
if you don't have a drummer that's going to lay the beat of the song you're performing, you're not going to be able to perform the song you're performing.
That's my
No.
pet peeve, and I've
I've
walked out of.
we can do a whole episode on pet peeves too.
Yeah, I've walked out of auditions or whatever going, if I get the gig, I will never play with that band because the groove changes dramatically when you have a drummer. I'm a really, like, Charlie is the drummer from Dancin Machine, who also sings and plays guitar in other projects and kills on that as well.
Mm-hmm.
He's such a stickler for learning the feels and the parts of the songs. And that guy kicks
His
my ass
counting.
every time I play with him. I'm going to tell you, he really does, man.
I've known Charlie, a long time, and the one thing that over impressed me about him over any other musician was his ability to measure count and perform and read and put it all together like he's not reading, and it was just one of the most impressive things I've ever seen in a drummer, let alone a musician, is to how he can dial in by the measure where he is and where you should be, and whether you are or you aren't. And it's just you have such a benefit into having somebody like that, as opposed to we'll pick it up from here, and he's going pick it up from measure 96, and you go what? He goes, it's the first measure of the second chorus. Oh, okay.
Right.
Yep.
He's a musician. I mean, he's analyzed all the parts since he was a kid, starting with John Bonham,
Wow.
and he's a huge Bonham fan, and he's a hardworking guy. He's a smart guy. He's a great player. And, he teaches me still to this day a lot about, grooving and playing behind the beat. And and playing together as a unit. And I'll tell you something else about him. He could sing any vocal part in any song that we do, and he can tell you probably what the guitar rhythms and the horn parts are as well, whether singing them or just telling you if something's
100%.
off. I mean, he
100%.
Yeah, he knows the material inside and out, and he'll go in and you have a support player. He might be like, there's something missing there, and we'll go back and listen, and he's always spot on, man. So
there's something missing.
A guy like that, man, keeps me,
He forces you to stay on track. Nice.
I got no choice, man.
Well, but that's a good thing. That's
absolutely.
In a situation. Absolutely. You shouldn't have it any other way.
Absolutely.
Awesome. On that note, we are coming to an end to our interview. Everyone give a round of applause to Rob Micucci.
Thank you so much for coming.
I love this.
And co-owner.
You definitely earned the Case for Bass nod.
Thank you.
You're in it now.